Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. Let me take yesterday's narrative a step further and tell you this. Yesterday I made mention of the doctrine of common purpose in law and said, in simple terms, the doctrine of common purpose says that if you are in cahoots or you are acting with a common plan or desire to commit an unlawful act, you need not be the actual perpetrator. You need not be the actual trigger puller to be found guilty just like the actual perpetrator. In other words, your guilt, when your guilt is assessed in law, you are no different from the actual perpetrator himself. That is the doctrine of common purpose. And this is the doctrine that Baloyi and Gininda are relying upon in the sense of Meyiwa trial to link all the accused together. Now, there is that mastermind, Khumalo, who has been brought into the mix by Brigadier Gininda by way of the doctrine of common purpose. Now, that if I can extrapolate that further, I would say, in line with that doctrine of common purpose, there was this mastermind in the form of Khumalo, who then instructed or hired the 5 accused persons that we see in the dock and contracted them to kill Senzo Meyiwa. In other words, it was a contract killing, and the sponsor or the orchestrator of it all, or the person behind it in simple language, was Khumalo. That is not conjecture. It is the evidence of Brigadier Gininda in the Pretoria High Court. And let us also not forget that this disclosure came at a time when Brigadier Gininda was being cross-examined, and it did not come out of him willingly. Let us also recap that in the summary of facts which was read into the record, no mention of Khumalo as the mastermind in the killing of Senzo Meyiwa was ever mentioned. So this disclosure came much later. And it would appear, or the only deduction to be made, was that the prosecution never intended to disclose this. Because if the prosecution had intended to disclose this information, they would have made it part of their summary of facts and would have disclosed all this information to the court at the commencement of the trial. They did not do this. And that this disclosure came under cross-examination just buttresses the view that that disclosure would never have been made by the prosecution had it not been for that cross-examination by Advocate Mnisi. Now, let us look at it this way once more, or take another angle. If Gininda then says Khumalo was the mastermind, this brings in Khumalo straight into the case. And like I indicated yesterday, Khumalo will by no means, there is not a chance of Khumalo ever going to admit that she was the mastermind. That would be self-incrimination and foolhardy on her part. So Khumalo, outside court, let me reiterate that Khumalo has never been called as a witness in this case. The only people at this stage of the trial who could have called him were the prosecution, because we are still dealing with the prosecution case. So the prosecution has not called her, and these disclosures and the rubbishing of the intruder theory is done outside court. But it is very, very significant, because through those disclosures, which Kelly Khumalo must go and make in court if she's subpoenaed or compelled by the defense lawyers to come before court and just clear up the air as to what role she played as a mastermind, then this trial will turn full cycle on its head. Because like I indicated yesterday, she will not just admit to being the mastermind. Now the whole case of Gininda hangs on her being the mastermind. That is his own disclosure. It hangs on the fact that Kelly Khumalo is the mastermind who hired these people with all the evidence about the payments made at the Basotho hostel and so on. Now, Kelly Khumalo, by denying that she was a mastermind, she is in fact saying, I did not hire those people, or as a matter of fact, I did not hire anybody or contract anybody to kill Senzo Meyiwa. And that will be the end of the intruder story. Because it is on that intruder theory that Gininda relies, using the confessions largely to say, these people have made confessions which I must always reiterate have been strongly disputed. These people made confessions willingly and voluntarily and admitted to the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. And over and above that, they also indicated to me that Kelly Khumalo was the mastermind behind it all. So that is the sum total of those confessions. They place Kelly Khumalo at the center of everything as the mastermind. Now, if Kelly Khumalo denies ever having contracted them, that works in the favor of the accused persons. Because all the accused persons will have to do is to come before court and say, Kelly has said it all. Kelly says she never contracted us, or she never employed us in a plot to kill Senzo Meyiwa. And that will be the end of the prosecution case. You will also recall that the prosecution case hinges also on ballistics evidence. One ballistics expert, I think there were two of them, but one Rolofse, a ballistic expert, also said that the gun that was found in the possession of accused number 3, Mthokozi Simncube, is the same gun that was used to kill Senzo Meyiwa. That is the evidence that they use as the prosecution to link Mncube to the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. But let me show you that that evidence alone cannot stand the test of time. Because in forensic investigations, it is not just good enough to find somebody in possession of a firearm and then make a decision that because that firearm was found in the possession of that particular person, he is then necessarily the killer of the victim. Because the killing could have been done by somebody else, and that firearm could have ended in the possession of Mthokozi Simncube. And without him having been the actual shooter. So that evidence is very shaky evidence. So that, the only other thing that is left then is the DNA evidence. The DNA evidence, it is quite clear, and this is on record before the court, found in that house, excluded all the 5 accused persons that we see in that courtroom. So where does this all leave us? This all leaves us now with questions that we must ask ourselves. The intruder theory falls away because, you cannot have a snake that has got a head. You see, before a snake can start slithering around, it must first of all have a head. Because without the head, no snake. So, no mastermind, no foot soldier. That is the logic of it. So that if Khumalo now comes before court and denies her intruder, I beg your pardon, denies her mastermind role, it then means that the prosecution case just simply disappears and dissipates and will never hear about it again. Because she cannot own up as a mastermind, this simply exonerates and clears these people who have always said these confessions were not made willingly or voluntarily. Right? And we have Khumalo as a witness. Now, Khumalo will be a witness this time around for the defense. And they can only say, we have Khumalo. If anybody says, I am Thokozisi Mncube, was involved in the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, or I, Bongani Ntanzi, was involved in the killing of Senzo Meyiwa, and that I was contracted by Khumalo. I have Khumalo who has, or who will say, or who has said, depends at what stage this comes up, who will come before this court and say, she never contracted me. I don't even know Khumalo. And Khumalo likewise will come before the court and say, I have no association whatsoever with Bongani Ntanzi or Thokozisi Mncube or any of the accused persons before the court. So that is the situation that we have. Khumalo, by denying that she is the mastermind, actually buttresses or strengthens the case of the prosecution. She strengthens the case of the prosecution, she strengthens the case of the defense. Because without that confession evidence, this case has got no leg to stand on. There are no eyewitnesses. None of the people who intruded into that house could definitively be identified. The ballistic evidence excludes all of them. The only link is that gun which is supposed to be linked to Thokozisi Mncube, the third accused. And like I've already said, finding somebody in possession of a firearm does not make him the shooter of the victim. Could have come way after the victim was killed through some other third party. So that is where we stand. This is the beginning of the end of the Senzo Meyiwa trial. Because at the stage when Gininda disclosed that Khumalo was the mastermind, Baloyi was visibly shaken. Because he could see that something is going to come out of this. Something is definitely going to come out of this because This disclosure was not initially made and does not form part of our summary of substantial facts, which say Kelly Khumalo is a victim, and all of a sudden now, under cross-examination, we admit, and really without any option, here comes Kininda to say Kelly Khumalo was a mastermind. So 636, the embedded 636, that now includes Kelly Khumalo, is going to, it is sowing the seeds of his own demise. Having said that, I think the defense must seize on this opportunity to use Kelly Khumalo, because it is Kelly Khumalo now who is the star defense witness here. She will be a star defense witness this time. You see, the prosecution chose not to call her, and it has always been questionable why they are not calling her. But she can, from that point of view, be called in and be a star witness for the prosecution, and that men in the Pretoria High Court, the 5 men that we see in the Pretoria High Court, will simply go home. Having said that, let me thank you for all the views that I'm seeing. Let me also, in a special way, thank you for all the subscriptions that I'm seeing. Please like these videos and have a nice day.